This is analysis of ZvZ when you're faced with tremendous amounts of aggression and you take lots of damage, but find a way to come out ahead in the mid-game in the Roach Ravager stage of things. So we'll look at the workers active for the two players and the advantages and disadvantages of the two approaches to the matchup. So Lings and Banes are often the units that are used to contest a player's third hatchery on this map. It's quite strong to go for because the distance between the natural and the third bases is quite large. So generally, players will take Ling speed, they'll drone up their natural a little bit, they'll take their own third hatch, we're both kind of doing the same thing, and this is the first major difference in decision between the two of us. So blue player here got up to 6 workers at the natural, full saturation on minerals in the main with full saturation in a gas, and then with their first inject cycles went for all Lings, see in the production tab. My production was drones. I'm taking a Bane nest as well, but my first inject was spent into drones, and I'm going to have the economy lead moving forward. The advantage of going Lings first is you're going to take initiative. So NYK is going to be dictating the flow of the action. They're morphing Banes on my side of the map. Generally, it's easier to micro an attack than it is to micro the defensive procedure for that attack. So that's another advantage of taking initiative in the matchup. It's easier to just move command Banelings into targets than it is to box 2 Lings and then try and bring down Banes. I tried to go for a Ling counter here. It was defended really well, so let's pause here and think about the state of the game. So I lost my third hatch. I have 2 queens here, and I don't have a queen in the main. So we're even on queens, we're even on Banes. The opponent has more Lings, but I have a drone lead. So with a drone lead, and with a Roach Warren, at this point I decided, alright, I can't beat the opponent with Larva income, because they have their third base intact. I lost my third base. So I'm going to take a different advantage. I'm going to take an upgraded lead with Roaches. So I go for gases here. I make a few Lings here. This is just to survive the continued Ling Bane pressure and harassment. But this layer means that I'll be able to take Roach speed earlier. I'm going for a gas lead, since I can't take a Larva lead. The opponent's Roach Warren is much later, they have not started a lair, and they're only just now taking the second gas. So while it might feel like you're behind, and in the sense of Larva, you are behind after you lose your third base, you can still take the edge of ranged attack for Roaches and Roach speed. Roach speed allows Roaches to move across the map and retreat, virtually unpunished in Roach versus Roach. It also allows you to get Overseers to scout. Lair is a pretty good upgrade if you feel like it's safe enough to take it. One thing to consider is Lair costs full Roach's worth of gas. So if the opponent were to go for a really quick Roach all-in follow-up with no more gases, not this gas, no drones at the third, you might want to spend that into Roaches. So I go Roach speed, ranged attack. This Overlord here gives me vision. I can see this lane. It's really important to have kind of a ring vision around the opponent. If you look at the mini-map, I have vision of the 4th. It would be nice to have vision here, but these Lings are kind of fulfilling that duty. This Overlord is looking at the main attack lane, as is this one. And I can see this left attack lane with this Overlord. The opponent is also going Roaches. You could say that building this many Roaches and not moving out immediately is a bit of a mistake. Anytime you build fighting units and not worker units, you're failing to gain value on that investment. So the units were put into the game, you might as well start marching them across the map. Right now, I have fewer Roaches, so they could potentially be threatening me earlier than they do threaten me. They decided to wait for Roach speed, I believe. Let's see. Where's their lair? I guess they didn't take Roach speed. Cool. So The opponent has 40 workers, I have 46. As a general rule, in ZvZ, if you make too many drones more than the opponent, you just straight up die. I feel like this worker difference is pretty reasonable, also taking into account that I lost my third hatch early. If you were to go for like 10 or 12 more workers, usually you just die straight away. But if you can sprinkle in a few extra workers, then when their attack arrives, you will have a similar number of units, maybe a bit less. Like here I have 19 roaches to the opponent's 23, but then you can fall back and defend, and your reinforcements will come out and be able to fight immediately. So we'll go to my vision for this attack and think about sort of the crisis management of seeing a really big attack that you're not sure you can defend, making sure all units are participating. I get a really good concave here. So I have fewer roaches, but they traded really well for their value. And then looking at the upgrade, just now the upgrade finished, so I didn't get to have that upgrade for the first fight, but now all my future roaches that are coming out are trading really well for their cost. +1 attack roaches trade super well with lings and favorably against other roaches that do not have an upgrade. I just bind that queen with the army, and then another queen with the army, so that they can transfuse. That transfuse is effectively another free roach. This transfuse is another free roach. I still have a worker lead through all of this. So this is very much a scenario where you're ahead economically, you're faced with a really big attack, and there's a range of acceptable losses you can take, where the opponent can kill your army, they can kill some of your workers, but you still have a clear edge if you can survive the attack. And that edge is upgrades in this case. Continuing to produce roaches. Since my economy is kind of low, I'm prioritizing roaches over queens. I'll remake my queens a bit later, once the attack is cleaned up. Now I'm slightly behind in workers. We're even, actually. And the attack is over. So here, it might feel like you're very injured and hurt, and in a way, if you lose all your queens, you're hurt. But again, my edge this game was not larva. It has never really been larva. It has been upgrades. So sure, they maintain the larva lead, but I have the upgrade lead. I can't really move out and push with +1 roaches and end the game, but the +1 upgrade scales really nicely into a +2 attack timing. So I'm just going to try and redrone my losses, get up to 3 base saturation or so, take a 4th base, let's go to production. So I'm making roaches and drones. Full Ravagers allows me to snipe overlords. It also denies vision to the opponent, so you're hurting them and you're also sort of blinding them of where your army is, how big your army is. The opponent doesn't know whether or not I'm going to go for a big all-in as a response, but I'm just redroning. On this map in particular, you can control this choke with comparatively few units, and then I have vision with these overlords here and here of 4th base locations and move outs in the side lanes. In games where your economy is in great shape, you can take overlord speed to make sure your overlords stay alive against Ravagers. In this game, because I took so much damage, I felt like I couldn't really afford it. So I just opted to go for +2 ranged attack and then keep up the roach production. Even if you take pretty big damage, taking the 4th at a reasonable time is super important, mainly because the main base mines out so quickly. When you're microing Roach Ravager, you'll notice I really frequently box my army in half, like put some of the army up and some of the army down, like right there. It naturally allows you to get a nice concave. So I took this fight right when +2 attack finished. We have very similar army sizes here, like a similar back line of Ravagers, a similar front line of Roaches, but my units are dealing more damage every single hit. So this is that early advantage of taking +1, paying off later with +2. trading in Roach Ravager is really important. This game, the opponent transitions into Muta, like they're making 4 Mutas right now. If you don't pressure the opponent, and maybe you pool up a bunch of Ravagers, the Muta switch can be really fatal to a Roach Ravager-based player. But if you take a big trade, whenever your upgrades are kicking in, you sort of punish the opponent for spending their money elsewhere in finesse units like Mutas. Mutas in small numbers in this scenario aren't very good. Like, they take quite a long time to clean up units. They should be focus firing Ravagers, but they're kind of just A-moving the Roach Ravager. And then here, they do have Mutas. They could have stayed in the game and tried to chase down the Roaches, but they could kind of tell by the amount of Roaches I have, Roaches in their main, Roaches in their natural. It would take them too long to clean up these Roaches to stay in the game and keep producing units. So that's basically an example of how to take advantages even when you take pretty big losses from opponent aggression.